Hello, I am Mistress Blunt. I am a professional dominatrix based out of New York City, and today I am here with Arabelle. I would love if you could introduce yourself, Arabelle.
Thank you. I'm Arabelle Raphael. I'm a pornographer and all around sex worker based out of the Pacific Northwest. I've been doing this for 11 years.
Yeah,
You
you
may have me.
said
Maybe.
a lot.
It's long enough.
And I think other than the fact that I always have like huge crushes on people who look like me or have curly hair,
Me too.
maybe Twincest is the place to start the conversation.
Oh, that's the thing for sure for me.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, cool. We
yeah.
got into it real real
Yeah, that was hard. I mean, look at my ex-girlfriend. We weren't gonna look alike, but it was enough, you know? It's like long dark hair, big titties, fat ass, and tattoos. I'm like,
Yes. You look great.
you look so good. So no, I'm like, what's wrong with me? But it's also what my fans like. So like it's interesting. Yeah. So like people do not care all that much about my girl content unless it's with another like thick or curvy like brunette, preferably with tattoos.
So interesting.
Yeah.
You I've like tried to like reverse engineer like what it is for me. And I've traced mine back to Jew camp and being very persuasive in my bunk
Yeah.
as a younger person. And it was just like, oh, I was just always around people who looked like me and like having these like weird intimate moments.
Yeah, I don't know what mine is. My first girlfriend in high school was like, but we didn't look alike. She was Jewish and brunette, but she was an Ashkenazi Jew. So it's not like we shared a lot of features anyway. I mean, whatever. But she had light brown hair. Yeah, but a lot of Jews too. Actually, a lot of Jewish girls. Lots of Jewish girls. Mostly Jewish girls.
I had like I once like was looking at all of my ex girlfriends and they all looked very similar to me and I was just like, man, I have a type and that type is me. It's so embarrassing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, fair. I'm like, I don't think I'm that into myself. Like, I'm pretty sure I have like enough self-loathing in here to like not like how is this a thing?
How can self-loathing and
Secretly, we love ourselves.
no, that's like our the deepest dark.
Deep down, we think we're the shit. We just don't know.
I'm not evolved enough to get past it.
Yeah, we'll get there someday.
It's so funny. My best friend in college looked a lot like me, and men would always hit on us asking if we were sisters. And we would every time just being like, yes, and start making out. And one person, like, I like once left my friend to go do something else, and she was like hooking up with this guy who we told were sisters, and she's like, this is my uncle. And she had gotten like really into it. And like, this is one of my friends who like identified as more vanilla for a long time, but with always being like roped into doing kinky shit with me.
Obviously, there was it's not that vanilla.
I think it was at my last birthday party. She asked me to whip some people and she was one of them, and she like her hands are on the wall, her ass is out, and she looks back at me and she's like, I don't think I'm vanilla.
No. It's so cute.
It was very cute. But okay, so now that we've gotten the important things
Princess, yes.
princess, yes, into it. I'm curious about some of the more like femdom dominatrixy part of your career in porn, and what, like, maybe starting with like what's been your favorite femdom scene that you've shot, or your favorite thing to shoot.
My favorite thing to shoot, it's always going to be cuck stuff. I love cucking. I love cucking, and it's a kink that I have a lot of like also a lot of like, I don't know, that can be complicated in ways that I don't love. But it is like my like favorite thing, and I've been able to kind of figure out how to maneuver through it in a way that feels good to me, because since like a lot of cuck stuff can also be tied in with a lot of like racial fetish stuff, and I personally don't do it. And for a minute I thought that was like gonna like crush my like cuck con, and really doesn't. Like it's actually really not hard at all. And so I love cucking. I like teasing. I like femdom. I think the favorite like femdom scene I've ever shot, that's one's kind of hard. But I did shoot, it might be my cuck scene for Divine Bitches. I think so. I think so.
I feel like findom and cucking go so well together. There's
They
like
really
hands,
yeah.
like doing a good job.
Right? Yeah, no, they can go really well together. And I just really enjoy it. It took me a long time to, I've like always knew I was a switch. And I'm mostly, as I get older, I lean more and more into dom, and more of a top. But yeah, for, you know, for a while it took me a second to like be able to figure out like who I was as a dom,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't know, it finally like kind of naturally fell into place. And for a while like I was trying stuff out that wasn't me, and like it didn't work, and I was just like, oh, I'm not a dom, but I'm like, I know I'm a dom. Like in my essence is like I am an alpha. Like I like, you know, like I was like, I know it is. And I like when I don't even know how like I got into this specific, I think it was just through shooting porn and just getting hired for it actually. And then like delving more into that and then realizing I was like, oh, I'm really good at this and I really like this. Um,
Totally. Yeah, I think I definitely tried on some like dom personas that were like not necessarily authentic and was just sort of like playing with other people's fantasies or like what I saw was out there. I definitely think in my like earlier career, I was trying findom things that were more along the lines of like, fuck you, pay me. And now it's much more like, this financial contract is a part of our long-term DS dynamic. And if you want to truly surrender power to me, that involves surrendering your finances. So let me meet with your financial counselor. um, so it has like a much more like integrated approach into the dynamic is what really works for me in findom dynamics. But I'm also super into cuckolding, and my girlfriend is actually my cuckold bitch, which is
and that's
which is really fun. And she's also really into findom, and I've never had played with that with a woman before, which was really interesting.
yeah, I've never. I'm like, have I ever? I've cucked women, but I've never done femdom with a woman ever.
Yeah, I was like, okay, you go to the financial counselor, make sure you have your fuck you fund, and then tell me what I can what I can play with. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to like figure out like how to articulate what is so hot about cuckolding. And I think it's like it plays with power in a really interesting way. And I also don't do like racialized cuckolding or racial fetishization or race play at all in my practice. But I think there's something about like teasing the distance. And I think a lot about kink, right? It's like latex as a barrier, or physical bondage and rope bondage as like a restraint. And like watching someone else get to fuck you and take pleasure with you in a way that they'll never have access to, I think is such a potent way of playing with that distance. And it's so hot.
Oh yeah, I mean it's all the tease and the tease and denial, which is so great. And yeah, so much of like BDSM in general is that, right? In whatever way, with latex, rope, whatever. The tease is like what works for me so well, and
Yeah.
just showing showing exactly like what others get to do and that person doesn't get to. I don't know. Yeah, it's super fun. I really enjoy it. I couldn't tell you why. I'm like, why do I enjoy it so much?
As
Um,
you enjoy
I
it?
like. I'm also like prefer Mean Girl. Like, I'm not super. I like some corporal punishment, but that's not really like my forte. And like in general, I'm not a super. There's more like scary doms, not really my jam. I'm definitely more like I used to identify as like a little girl on the playground. I feel less that way now because I feel like I've gotten a little older. But it's like those similar like sentiments of just like being mean and flirting at the same time and like playing around with someone. But I don't know. I'm so bad at talking about this. But
It's like a game of cat and mouse, it sounds like.
yeah, 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 very much so. I like to play. I like to play. I don't know, I have cats. I watch them go all day. So
I love that. It's funny. I'm a dog person and very much cat. I have like a very playful side, but can be much more into the intense like DS training. And I got a puppy 2 years ago he is a mix of like poodle and border collie and Australian shepherd. And I did not know what I was getting into when I adopted him. And he needed like such intense training. And I worked with this dog trainer and I was like, she's like, why are you so good at this? And I had worked and I'm like, I feel like I learned so much about being a dom through dog training. Now I like use some of my dog training tools when I'm playing with people.
that's so good. That's so good. I
I feel
love that.
like cats are sadistic too, though.
Hmm?
Cats like to play with things. They have like a little
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely sadism. It's just a specific type,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was around a lot of like just very I guess serious doms when I like first started, like the people that I was around. So it's and I tried to emulate that and I was not that, that's just not how I flow. And I realized I just really like to play. And mean. But it's very playful.
I like that. That's fun. I feel like even when I'm doing higher protocol things, I'm never serious. Uh,
Yeah.
which I feel like I don't see a, a
Mm. There's
like
not a lot of that, at least on camera. Or
that I think that's an interesting thing too, thinking about like what kind of like the difference between femdom porn and what professional dominatrices are advertising. I think that's really interesting, especially with the like getting over the whole, oh, well, doms don't have aren't
I was
penetrative
about to say,
during sex.
yeah. Well, it's interesting to see that there's definitely a new, like, I mean, I think there were always femdoms that were doing in-person stuff that were also doing that. They were just keeping it on the DL. It's interesting to see the new hybrid, like, dom that like actively like does talk about that stuff. um because yeah, porn, there's some sites, but if you're talking that are strictly like just BDSM with no like sex intertwined. But like, yeah, most porn, someone's getting fucked. And yeah, your dumb might like use your dick or yeah. I think porn actually made the like in person kind of dumb like thing kind of like pushed that or created that. I don't know. I'm also like
I don't do that, or the I now do that.
I do that. Yeah.
It's
I wonder if like the how because I do feel like BDSM porn like mainstream as much as it can, but like, I think like, well, you take a site like Kink, it's a pretty big site for a BDSM site. Like other BDSM sites are not that, like, never got that big. And I can think of, like, you know, intersex, no, wait, no, something else, intersect, that's the name now, I can't remember, I shot for them too, and I can't and like I can't even remember who else was around. There's been like a lot of like smaller companies, and now I feel like the Vixen brand is making their own BDSM content. But yeah, like, so in the last couple years, that kind of porn and like femdom porn with more of that stuff has like gotten bigger and bigger, and so I wonder if that's why we're seeing more and more folks advertising like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I definitely like moved in that direction, and I came out of like an old guard leather house, which like trained me to be a great dom, but didn't teach me anything about being a professional dominatrix.
Yeah, that's still two different things, right? Like,
yeah, two very different things. And I think because there was a more like it was personal dynamics, like I trained as a submissive, like earned leathers, and there was like lots of sex in the like penetrative way. I think like, right, like just like licking a boot can be sex too, so I try not to.
yeah, I know, that's why I'm like saying like separating them is kind of weird to me in general.
I there is something about that separation, but like sex of a penetrative matter where like I'm getting fucked and someone's getting fucked with something inside of someone in some hole, whether maybe we're making a new hole with a needle, I don't know, but had always been like a part of what I was into about BDSM, and that like the tease and the denial and like the pushing of what someone can take, how many times someone can edge for you, or like how long someone's been in chastity for. But when I started working, none of my peers were doing anything that involved their genitalia that they were talking about in any way. And like, cool, this is something kind of different. And it wasn't until I was like, wait, this isn't like I love using people like human dildos, is like what I find like one of the most interesting parts I like about kink. And I was like, why am I why am I not doing that? And then I started shooting more porn. But it was like definitely something that I thought about. It was like, oh, well, like what will like my dom peers think? And like, of course, it was nothing. Like I got like,
but I feel like I mean, at least I see it on Twitter, you know, like there's definitely like, and maybe less so now, but there used to be like a huge like pushback. And I used to live with a pro dom, and I remember like the first time, like when I moved in, you know, she like made it a very like clear to me. She was like, I don't use my genitals for work. I'm like, okay, girl, good for you. Like, don't care. You know, so there's that stuff definitely is there, but you know, I don't know, to me, for me, a dom does whatever the fuck they want.
right?
That's the whole point. I mean, I could see a dom getting like spit roasted and smacked, but if you're like calling the shots, like you're still the one in charge. And I think that's where I got confused, where like I'm really not a submissive. It's just that I can like bottom and I can enjoy bottoming. But there's a difference between being a submissive and bottoming, like even, you know, like
I feel similarly because I'm like a heavy sadomasochist, and like can appreciate pain on both sides of an implement, but like, and I'll say it, like I need a good bottoming submissive scene like once a year to keep me like humble and like well-rounded. Just like stasis in my mind and my body. I've been missing it in the pandemic. But like I think, and like with like my exes, the way that we would fuck it like I feel like there's this misconception that specific activities are top or bottom or submissive or dominant, and like anything can be done in any way because the dom does whatever the fuck they want. And so like if I train my submissive to be a human fuck machine who's like choking me and not allowed to come until I tell him he can, like doesn't matter what it looks like if the audio's off.
oh, I feel this big way because you know, blowjobs are seen as the most like it's either degrading or it's dismissive and whatever. And I'm like, I'm literally putting your sex organ in my mouth. Like, I control your pleasure, I control your pain, I can control your orgasm. I cannot think of a more submissive act than putting your fucking dick in somebody's mouth, right? Like, and so like, and I make so, and I'll switch a little bit. I do some face fucking stuff, but most of my blowjobs are like very much me, like that I shoot are very much me in control. And like I find that to be like a top activity, even though like, you know, sometimes depending on, you know, how it's done, but like a lot of people don't view it as that, and it's purely looked at as a submissive, which
So I just remember my first boyfriend in the beginning of our relationship wouldn't let me suck his dick because he thought it was degrading to women. And I like remember holding I remember later in the relationship holding him down and like it's like squeezing his dick and looking him in the eye and be like, do I look degraded to you, motherfucker? And like giving him like an amazing blowjob. But I was like, it had never occurred to me that it was like submissive or degrading because it's like, right, like you're in total control of someone's pleasure and you can like make it go as long or like as quick as you want and like incorporate elements of pain into it if you want, bring them right to the edge and then like slow down. So I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, you idiot? Like, you know nothing.
I read a lot of like second wave feminism. Read some Andrea Dworkin and then was like, we can't have sex. I'm sorry.
One blowjob changed it.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's it's weird that there are all these rules that get made, and I'm just like, this is like about me doing whatever I want. So at least to me, like I'm like,
Definitely what I think. And I feel like I've been seeing more and more of that in like in pro doms and also in some of the porn that I watch. Not that I watch a ton of porn. I feel like it's just like market research. And I think this is something that you've talked about before.
yeah, I don't watch pornography. It's that fantasy's ruined. I like either know the people or I'm thinking of it from a technical aspect or I'm being weird and comparing myself. None of those are hot. Like none of those scenarios are sexy for me. There's one mommy dom that once in a blue moon I'll rub it out to. Once in a blue moon. But really no cartoons only because I know how it's made. I don't know, yeah, it's just like it's no longer. I've been doing it for 11 years. I don't like no.
This mommy dom on Twitter who was a doppelganger of my old therapist who also used to be former sex worker. I was pretty sure it wasn't her. They had very different accents. So it would have been a very impressive act. But I was just like, wow, like
Now did you jerk off to it or
had a field day. I just felt very confused.
yeah, fair. I don't know
I
how
felt like aroused and confused.
yeah. I had a therapist that looked like did you ever see I Love Dick?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, you know the actress in there? She looks exactly like that actress, and she's like does a bunch of like kind of like sexy mom movies now, and I'm just always like, oh, I'm just like turned on, and I feel weird all at the same time.
so, so funny. I didn't find her until after I had stopped seeing her as a therapist. So I was like, I don't even know how I would bring this up.
Right.
But yeah, the mommy dom, a classic. It's
Oh yeah, love mommy dom. That's something I like really pushed back on for the longest time. Mostly because like I was getting called mommy at like 25 and I was like, fuck you. Yeah, exactly. And in the last like couple years, I've really embraced mommy and I'm really loving it. Love it.
I feel like I can like move between like mommy and daddy energy, but like the last like 2 or 3 years, I've been like hard mommy and it's felt so good. And I feel like I love the energy exchange in mommy's scenes. It's so sweet.
It is. I also can switch, but I'm also feeling the mommy way more. I used to go by daddy. And yeah, so once in a while someone will call me daddy and I'll be like, okay. But like I'm definitely like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it just came with my 30s, but I'm just like, mommy is here.
What better thing is there to moan than mommy? Mommy is, it's like literally made to be moaned. Um, yeah, it's interesting because I feel like in pro dom scenes, I'm not super into like adult baby scenes, which were the one like where most of the session requests that I was getting. And now I'm getting a lot more from littles and like sexting with like even if there's not an age play dynamic where I'm just still mommy and it's like a very nurturing dominant role who just like wants you to be your best version of yourself and like pleasure mommy and do mommy's bidding and like give mommy everything that she wants, like a good little boy or girl.
No, that's my jam too. I don't like the adult babies either. I think it's fine, but it's not my jam. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So there are other wonderful doms that will do it right. I'm just not going to be that person for you. Um, yeah, I'm not into it, and so I've never been able to like properly provide that. But the yeah, it like itch play can be in it, or it doesn't even like come into to it. But in general, and I could just get so much of it, and I just I really like it.
Yeah.
Feels really natural.
I feel like people don't often I feel like so much of this conversation is like kink can be whatever you want it to be based on like what you want. But with
Yeah.
like mommy play, I think I was having a conversation with someone who was like feeling really conflicted about it. And I was like, it doesn't have to be about age play if like that's not
Weird.
your
Yeah.
thing. Like you can just call your partner mommy and get off on like the maternal archetype. And I actually did a really fun conversation with Jessie Sage, who is both a mother in a biological sense and a mommy in like a kinky sex worker porn sense. And we were talking about like how nice it is that when someone um, gives you a chance to consent to being like mommified instead of just like having men put you in that like maternal caregiving emotional labor position. And for me there's been something like really cathartic about like intentionally entering into those dynamics rather than having it like thrust on me by society.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, I feel that about like all sex work, really. I mean,
But yeah, that's a
I
fair
I was
point.
I was sexualized, like this is not hot, but whatever, like fairly young and then my entire life, by the world. And for me, it definitely like felt at some point like I was just like taking reins of that and being like, okay, well, this is going to happen to me no matter what. And I mean, obviously, there were other factors into why I got into sex work, but like this definitely like, is a part of it where it's like, it's not the reason why, but I can see how it's like connected, if that makes sense. But it's like, yeah, it's taking like it's like seizing the like means of production, and making it.
I was scrolling through your tweets earlier.
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about that a lot because I'm super into ethogenic therapy. And so I've been doing like a lot of just kind of like I don't know, I've spent the last like year like digging into like my psyche, right? And so I'm seeing a lot of like, I'm just like putting the puzzles a little together, right? And it's definitely a thing. I'm like, I think I definitely like was like, oh yeah, this was a way of, and I'm not saying it in the way of like sex work is like empowering because I don't love that narrative necessarily, but there is something definitely like awesome about being like, okay, well, this is a thing that like happens no matter what. Like now I can like control that and make bank off that and like, use it to my benefit.
Totally.
You
I
know?
I feel like I haven't thought of it quite like that, but although it totally like resonates with me, but there is something for me about just like, and maybe it is the same thing of just like learning about sex really young and then like understanding how power is then related to sex, and then how I could like wield it either like a weapon in like a kinky sense of like teasing, or as like a means of making money, was a really interesting, like finding out like where money then fits into that was really interesting for me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think, I mean, in the society that we have set up, like, like, or we have set up, but that sex is like a form, you know, is a tool, you know, but yeah, and can be a very powerful tool. So.
Yeah, to extract maximum.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I didn't want to go to. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to make more than my doctor's sister, so I figured it out.
I love that.
I'm terrible.
I did go to college, and when my dad found out I was doing sex work, he was like, "You went to art school. This is a great business decision for you."
That's good.
like thanks.
Rude. Like it's like both.
Yeah, well, I felt like we've covered so much in this, but I have one last question for you. How has the pandemic changed, or has it, your sexual fantasies, and like what have you been thinking about and like excited for in some like whatever the future looks like when people can see each other more safely?
For me, so I've been mostly locked up in a house with like a cis man for like the last year. So just honestly, anyone that's not that would be kind of fun to play with. I would really, honest, specifically, I wanna beat up some femmes. That's what I want to do. That's what I've been like thinking about. Yeah, I want to be mean to some pretty femmes. That's how, and I don't know if that's ever like changed. It's just more so maybe.
It's funny. I've been locked up with a bunch of queer folks, or like the people who have been in my pod are a really cute non-binary person, Jackie Indigo, who I've played with a bunch, which has been really fun. And then my girlfriend, who's a cis woman. And I have never fantasized about torturing a cock so much. Like usually I feel like very like opposite extremes. I've also been like super into latex, which I have an allergy to. So but I would just want to see other people in it. But like, I want to see someone in like head to toe latex with like a funnel, just like drinking my spit and fluids, because that's been so taboo, and just like my toe on their cock and just like read a book. Like that's where I've been focusing on. But yeah, like I realized I was like, I haven't fucked a cis man in like a year and a half, which hasn't happened, and I didn't know that I would miss so much.
Fair. Yeah, right. When you're, you know, when you get what you have like access to, taking away so much access to, you're like, oh, this is no longer abundant. Now I want it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I always like to say that dick is abundant. I'm like, nah. It's so weird. I like, but I'm also like, what?
That dick is abundant and low value.
Yeah, no, it is very much so. It's weird because I still really like it, but like, I don't know. It takes a lot to impress me. But yeah, okay. Well, no, wait, no, never mind. I'll ask you after.
Okay. Well, that sounds like the perfect time to end.
I have a question for you. They don't get to hear it.
Chatting with me.
Yeah, of course.
I look forward. We've never met in person, so I'm excited for that post-pandemic. I feel like I know you just from like parasocial relationships. Yeah. But I'm excited.
Watched enough of the same people that we've been in the same room together.
Okay, I'll pause this.